Welcome to lecture number 4. In this lecture, we'll cover the following topics: Introduction to Cascading Style Sheets, CSS Syntax, Types of CSS, and Comments in CSS. In the previous 3 lectures, we only discussed about the HTML structure, like how we can put basic elements into a document and show them on the web page. But there is a lot more to go. Now, why do we need style sheets? Before the introduction of style sheets, all the attributes of HTML were written inside the HTML tags. Means everything such as font colors, background colors, alignments, borders, and sizes were used inside the HTML tag itself. So there is actually not much that we can do with HTML when we talk in context of styling. All we wanted to do is the separation between the structure of a web page and its styling. So W3C is an international standards organization that maintains these style sheets. Now let's move ahead. Introduction to CSS. CSS was designed to enable the separation of presentation and content. The content is our HTML structure, while the presentation represents the styling. That what are the colors that you want to use, what is the alignment, what is the border style or the border color, and there are so many things that you can include in CSS. CSS was introduced in 1996 by the World Wide Web Consortium, which also maintains its standard. CSS is a language for specifying how documents are presented to the user, like how they are styled and laid out. This allows you to create great looking web pages, and it can be used for basic document styling, for example, for changing the color and size of headings and links and many more elements, as we have already discussed. And further, it can also be used for effects such as animation. Next is a CSS syntax. CSS is a rule-based language. You define the rules by specifying groups of styles that should be applied to particular elements or groups of elements on your web page. For example, you can decide to have the main heading on your web page to be shown as a blue text, and the following code shows a very simple CSS rule that would achieve the styling. So this is how a normal syntax of CSS would look like. You have a selector and you have the property value pairs, and you want to change the color of the text of H1, and you also want to change the size of H1. So this is how it looks like. H1 represents the selector. We'll have more discussion about selectors in the next lecture. And here in this syntax, we have curly braces. The whole thing consisting of property and value is known as a declaration, while there is a separation using the colon. So the first one will be the property. Before the colon comes the property, after the colon comes the value. And when you have more properties, you need to separate them by semicolon. So this is my first declaration, this would be my second declaration. You can also include this in the same line. As you can see in this syntax, the whole declaration is in the same line, while the one that I have written over here, that is in different lines. So in different lines, that is for more readability. Otherwise, this will also work. Now let's have a look at the different types of CSS. The first one is an inline CSS. Then we have internal or embedded. And the last one is an external style sheet. Now the inline style sheet. Inline styles are CSS declarations that affect a single HTML element contained within a style attribute. This is the syntax. So this is one of the easiest way to apply styling. You can see that you have an H1 tag including some content, hello world, What we have done here, we included one style. Style represents the styling that you want to apply to this specific tag. Style will act as an attribute here. So whenever you want to apply style to a particular tag, you can just include style as an attribute inside the tag and put equal to sign and mention all the property value pairs, but separated by a semicolon. So you want to change the color of the heading, write color, colon, the name of the color. You have another property, then put a semicolon, then write down the name of the other property, put a colon, specify its value, another semicolon. Again, if you have another property, you can write down the name of that property, put colon, another value, and so on. So this is how an inline style sheet is represented. So let's do the practical. Let's now create a new file by clicking on this icon. I'll write here lecture 4.html. File is ready. Now put shift and exclamation and we will get the HTML template here. Let's include one heading, H1, and let's say I write here welcome to this web page. That's just a heading. So let's go live and check whether we are getting the output on the web page. Right, so we have got the output here. Welcome to this web page. You can see that this is by default in black color. Now we want to style it and we want to apply, let's say, blue color to this. So I'll put one style attribute here equals to and write down the color. Color represents the text color and it's not the color of you can say the background color or the border color. It represents the color of your only the text. So remember whenever you want to change the color of your text, that is the words, then you need to put color property. So I'll specify here blue color. And you can see my text has been changed to blue color. Further, I also want to include one more piece of styling here, and that is font size. So I write here font size as 12px. Well, it's reduced. Let's better change it to 45px. I'll mention here 45. 45. Px represents pixels. We can see that the size of our heading has increased. We need to increase a little more. I'll write here, let's say 62px. Let's maximize the size of the browser. This is how your heading will look like. We can see that the size is increased and the color has also changed. Okay. Now, next is we can include few more properties here. And that is, let's say I'll include, I can have a background color. The background color should be represented by, let's say I'll take black for the time being. We yet don't know how it would look like, but we can change the color combinations later on. So this is how it looks like. Means we should change the color because color combination is also very important. The background, whenever you have a dark text color, your background should be light, or if you have a dark background, your text color should be light. So instead of blue, I'll change it to aqua. So aqua looks much better here. Let's now make this text, this heading, in the center of the web page. And for making our text in the center of the web page, I'll use text align property, whose value ranges from center. It can be left or right. I'll mention here center. And it's now in the center of the web page. But now the question arises, is it okay to use inline styling always? Definitely not. When talking about real-world projects, this should be avoided, as the code in your HTML file that only contains the structure of your web page becomes more and more complex. And that's the reason we have other kinds of styling. Let's talk about internal or embedded style sheet. An internal style sheet resides within an HTML document. To create an internal style sheet, you place CSS inside the style element contained inside the HTML head tag. So in the previous one, that is in inline styling, we used to write style as an attribute. But here in this, we write style as a tag. This is the syntax. Inside the head tag, you need to place the style tag, within which you need to specify all the styling. This syntax looks exactly like the one that we have discussed in the CSS syntax slide. Let's now perform an internal styling on a web page. For this, I'll comment the h1 tag and I'll introduce it once again, and we'll write on the same content, welcome to this web page. This time we will not apply the styling within the tag. For the internal styling, we have to come to the head tag and include style as an attribute, within which I'll mention that what is the tag upon which I want to apply the styling. And right now I'm having just one tag, and that is h1. So I'll put here h1, within which I'll mention the color, that is the text color, should be changed to, let's say this time I would like to change it to red. And font size, I need to change it to 61 we had taken previously. So I'll take 61. And yeah, so this is how it looks like on the web page. The output looks like this. Further, we can also include one background color. Background color I'll consider yellow. Yellow would look nice with the color combination of red. Let's make it centralized as well using text align center. And your text has been centralized. This is how the output looks like in a full-size web browser. You must also notice that we have separated our styling from our HTML markup. This thing allows for consistent styling across multiple elements. And this can be further improved using external style sheets. Let's now discuss external style sheets. An external style sheet contains CSS in a separate file with a .css extension. This is the most important feature, that we do not include the styling in the HTML file. Instead, we write it in a separate file whose extension will be .css. You can link a single CSS file to multiple web pages, styling all of them with the same CSS style sheet. This is our HTML file. You can see that in this, we neither have included style as a tag, nor we have included style as an attribute. Means this is neither an internal style sheet nor an inline style sheet. This is an external style sheet. But how does it work? If your styling is in a separate file, how would your HTML file know about that styling? So you need to include a relation here. You must be able to have a link with that style file. So you need to include link rel equals to style sheet, href, that is the hypertext reference to the style sheet that you want to refer to. This will allow you to fetch all the styling into your HTML document. And this is how your CSS file will look. You can see that the syntax is exactly like as we have an internal style sheet. The only difference is that we don't have a style tag here. So the syntax is exactly the same. You need to have a selector, the curly braces, then property and value pairs. For implementing external style sheet, I'll create a new file. First, I'll create a new HTML file, lecture4b.html. We already have a lot of code inside 4a, so that is why I'm creating a new file. And after creating the HTML file, I'm creating a new CSS separate file as mandatory for implementing external style sheets. So this is our lecture4b.html. We need HTML template here. And we will include one h1 tag where I write welcome to this web page. We need to save this file. And at this time, you need to go live once again in order to check the output for lecture4b.html. Okay, that's great. We got the output for lecture4b.html. But there is no styling applied here. For applying the styling, we have to come to style.css and write down your selector, that is the h1 tag. We will change its color to red. And we will change the background color to, let's say I'll specify yellow only. And I need to change the font size also. Font size, I'll take it as 62px. Finally, I also need to centralize by using text align as center. But you see again, there is no change because there is no relationship between the HTML file and the CSS file. To mention that relationship, we need to come to the head tag and write down the link tag. ARIA specifies the relationship between the two files, and href is the hypertext reference that will refer to the style sheet that you want to. So I'll write down the name of the file, style.css, and you can see that the output has now changed. Let's now enhance our web page. We will include one image using img element whose source I'll mention as solar.jpg. It's the same image as we used in the previous lecture. The height and width are quite large for this image, so we need to change this. We know that we can do it using HTML attributes height and width. But since this lecture's topic is CSS, so we will be changing these two properties using CSS. So come to style.css and mention your selector, that is img. Write down the height as some value. I'll take it as 425px. The width, I'll take it as 525px. The height and width have been changed. This is how the output looks on a full-size web browser. Now I want to shift this image towards right-hand side. For this, we use a property called as margin. So whenever we want to shift from the left-hand side, we need to use margin left. When we want to shift the image from the top, we use margin top. For bottom, we use margin bottom, and for the right-hand side, we use margin right. So right now, what I need is, I need to shift the image towards the right-hand side. Means I am shifting from the left-hand side. So from where you are shifting, that specific property you need to mention, and that is margin. You need to write here left. I'll specify this time, let's say 156px. And the image has now shifted 150px towards the right hand side. Means there will be a gap of 156px from the left hand side. We can now apply some background color to our web page as well. Write down the body tag as a selector, and the background color we will mention as, let's say, black. Looks great. Next is comments in CSS. In the previous lectures also we discussed that comments have no effect on the output of the browser. Same here as well. If any CSS code you want to comment and you don't want to show its effect in the browser, you can use comments. A CSS comment is used to add explanatory notes to the code or to prevent the browser from interpreting specific parts of the style sheet. By design, comments have no effect on the layout of a document. Comments in CSS can be included as these. Now I write down one comment here, slash, and then a star. I write to change the text color. And you see that the whole code after this has been commented, so we also need to close it. So our comment has now been inserted, but there will not be any effect on the browser. You can see that the browser output has not changed at all. But yeah, you can also use comments to comment out any piece of code that you do not need for that particular point of time. Let's say I do not need this background color of the web page right now. So I can put slash and then star asterisk and then another asterisk and then a slash. So when you check the output, this is the output that you see here. Now that we know what are the different kinds of style sheets, why do we need them, and how to work with different types of style sheets. So now we have approached the end of the lecture. These are the references that you can refer for covering all the topics that have been covered in this lecture. Also, I have included the program links. So the first program link is for inline styling and for embedded styling. The second link is for external styling. Now the week 4 assignment. Go to this website freecodecamp.org and you have to cover steps 8 to 25 of Learn Basic CSS by building a cafe menu. I have included a screenshot for the same. Learn Basic CSS by building a cafe menu. The tick marked boxes should be covered for week number 4. That's all for lecture number 4.